My mother-in-law absolutely hated my close relationship that I had with father-in-law. She always said it was weird and just all sorts of horrible things, but I never thought that she would block me from seeing him on his final 2 weeks on this earth, on his deathbed. I didn't even get to say goodbye. Little did I know it didn't end there. She instilled something in his mind before he passed that I was a thief. She forged all this evidence against me for taking money out of his account, when really it was her to frame me. And it doesn't stop there. She got him to change the will. I don't even know how to put my thoughts into words. I felt so angry, hurt, and betrayed all at once. My father-in-law Henry passed away recently, and instead of mourning his loss, all I can think about is how unfairly things ended between us. I was close to Henry, closer than anyone else in my husband's family. He was very kind, intelligent, and always treated me with respect. Unlike my mother-in-law Patricia, who has made it her life's mission to make me feel like an outsider. Since Henry got sick, I was one of the few people who actually stepped up to help. I drove him to the doctor's appointments, managed his paperwork, and sat with him when he was too weak to do anything but talk. And what did I get in return? I got betrayal. A few months ago, Patricia accused me of stealing from Henry's bank account. She told everyone, including Henry, that I'd been secretly taking his money for myself. At first, I thought it was just another one of her nasty little mind games. But then Henry started to act different. He stopped trusting me, stopped letting me help with things like I used to. At first, I didn't understand what had changed, but when I finally confronted my husband about it, he admitted that his mother had shown Henry proof of my supposed theft. I nearly lost it. I've never in my entire life stolen a single thing from anyone. I work, I have my own money, and I never need anything from Henry. But Patricia, being the manipulative woman that she is, must have fabricated some kind of evidence convincing enough for a dying man to believe it. The worst part is, it worked. Not long before he passed, Henry called my husband and me to his room, and with such disappointment written in his eyes, told us that he had corrected the will. He didn't go into much detail, but he made it clear that after seeing Patricia's evidence, he felt he could no longer trust me the way he once did. I tried to defend myself, but he was already so weak, so exhausted, that he just shook his head and said he needed to do what was best for his family. That moment shattered me. I'd spent years providing myself to this family and proving who I was. Years making sure that Henry was comfortable, ensuring that his medications were taken on time, and making his life easier while Patricia and Ryan barely lifted a finger. I was the one who ran errands when he was too weak to leave the house. I was the one who fought with the doctors to make sure he was getting the right care. I was the one who sat beside him when he couldn't sleep at night, offering comfort when the pain became too much. And yet, in the end, it was all undone by Patricia's lie. I tried to talk to Henry again before he passed, but he wouldn't see me alone. Patricia was always there hovering, watching me with some smug little look on her face. I knew that she had won. She had manipulated a sick, vulnerable man into doubting me just enough to change everything. And now he is gone, and I'll never have the chance to make things right. My husband Mark was devastated when Henry told us about the will change, but he still refused to fight back. He kept saying Henry was too sick, too tired, and that we should just let it go. We know the truth, he told me, as if that was enough. Well, it wasn't. Not when Patricia and Ryan were getting exactly what they wanted, while I was being pushed aside like I meant nothing. And now I have to attend his wake and funeral, pretending everything's fine, while Patricia smirks at me from across the room. She's already been sending her little passive-aggressive jabs, saying things like, "Well, I hope you can still find it in yourself to pay your respects, dear, even after everything." As if she's the bigger person. As if she didn't just spend the last few months turning Henry against me so she could give more money to her deadbeat son. Well, Ryan, by the way, is practically glowing with happiness. He's been walking around acting like he's some grieving son, when in reality all he cares about is the money. He's already made comments about what he's planning to do once the will is officially read. A new car, a trip to Bali, maybe even investing in a business profile, which, knowing Ryan, means wasting it all in a few months and running back to Patricia for more because he invested in the next up-and-coming stock. Or should I say meme coin? I feel like I'm going to be sick. I don't even know if I can do it. The thought of sitting there watching everyone mourn while knowing what really happened makes me feel physically ill. And I know Patricia will be watching me the entire time, enjoying the fact that she won. The most painful part is knowing that Henry believed her. No matter how much I try to tell myself that he was sick, vulnerable, manipulated, I can't shake the feeling of betrayal. In his final days, when he should have known better than trust anyone, he doubted me. He truly believed that I was capable of stealing from him, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive that. Mark's been trying to get me to focus on honoring Henry's memory. But it's hard when all I can think about is how he cut me off before he died. How do I stand there and listen to people talk about what a great man he was when I knew that in the end he saw me as a thief? How did I pretend that I'm grieving like everyone else when my grief is tangled with betrayal? I keep playing different scenarios in my head. If I go, I know Patricia will take every chance to rub it in. She'll put on her little grieving widow act, pretending to be devastated when in reality she's relieved. Relieved that she got what she wanted, that her plan worked. And Ryan will be standing right next to her, counting the minutes until he can get his hands on whatever inheritance is waiting for him. If I don't go, people will talk. They'll whisper about how I couldn't even show up to say goodbye. Patricia will spin the story, turning it into another reason why Henry was right to change the will. I feel like no matter what I do, I lose. But maybe that's just what Patricia wants me to think. Maybe that's part of her game, to make me feel so small, so helpless, that I just disappear quietly while she takes everything. Well, I don't know if I have the strength to sit through the funeral without breaking. I don't know if I can handle seeing my husband mourn his father, while I feel nothing but anger and sadness at the way it all ended. But I do know one thing. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. Update number 1, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for the support. I wasn't expecting such an overwhelming response, and honestly, reading your comments has helped me feel less alone in all this. It's been incredibly difficult, but knowing that others see how messed up the situation is has given me the clarity I needed. After struggling with whether or not to attend the wake, I finally sat down with my husband Mark and had a long conversation. We both have been so emotionally drained that we had not really taken the time to process everything together. I told him how much I dreaded going, how I could not stomach the thought of sitting there while Patricia gloated. I told him how angry and hurt I was that Henry died believing I was a thief, and how I wasn't sure I could mourn him the way I should. Mark, to his credit, did not dismiss my feelings. He's grieving too, but he admitted that a part of him feels numb to the whole thing, because of how his mother twisted everything. He said that Henry wasn't just my loss but his too, and it killed him to know that his father's final days were tainted by Patricia's lies. We sat there for a long time talking about everything, and finally we came to a decision. We will not be attending the wake. No, not at all. Not going to go. Neither of us see the point in subjecting ourselves to Patricia's fake sobbing and Ryan's smug attitude. We know exactly how it'll play out. Patricia will put on a show, Ryan will act like the perfect grieving son, and the entire thing will be a performance designed to make me and Mark look like the villains. We refuse to play that game. However, we will be attending the funeral. Not for Patricia, not for Ryan, but because Henry was still someone who we loved before he was manipulated. And because whether we like it or not, we needed to be there for the reading of the will that will happen afterward. We know Patricia made sure Henry changed it in her, and Ryan's favor, of course. But at this point, it's not even about the inheritance. It's about being there, hearing it for ourselves, and making it clear that after this, we're done with them. And of course, Patricia is already doing her best to twist everything to suit her narrative. Apparently, she's now telling family members that Mark and I, quote, aren't helping at all with the funeral arrangements. She's painting herself as the poor widow abandoned by her own son, who's shouldering all the burden himself. Well, the reality is she's been barring us from helping the entire time since Henry passed. Every time Mark or I tried to offer assistance, she either ignored it, brushed us off, or claimed everything was, quote, already taken care of. And now she's turning around and crying to the family about how alone she is in handling it. The audacity is almost laughable, but it gets worse. Patricia is now going around telling people that she was the one who convinced Henry not to press charges against me for stealing. She's acting as if I should be grateful to her, because in her words, Henry apparently wanted to take legal action, but she told him it's not worth it. Patricia told him to just consider the money I supposedly took as an early inheritance. And guys, I have no words. She's rewriting history to make herself look like some kind of saint, while making me look even worse. In her version of events, Henry was furious with me and wanted me punished, but she, the ever-gracious, forgiving wife, talked him down and encouraged him to let it go. I cannot express how disgusting it is to hear this. Not only did I never steal a single cent from Henry, but now she's acting like she's the reason I wasn't arrested. Yeah, right. She's the reason I wasn't arrested. I wanted to scream. I want to tell everyone exactly what she did. How she manipulated a dying man into distrusting me just to funnel more money into her useless son's future. But I know that trying to argue with her now will only give her more power. She thrives on twisting reality, and the more I fight, the more she'll spin the story in her favor. So I won't fight. Instead, I'll smile at the funeral, sit through the will reading, and when it's all done, Mark and I will cut Patricia and Ryan out of our lives completely. Henry was the only decent parent Mark had. Patricia and Ryan, they were nothing to us now. At this point, the inheritance isn't even the main focus for me. Would it be satisfying to get a portion just to spite Patricia? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, the real victory is walking away. If this entire ordeal ends with Mark and I finally getting them out of our lives for good, then that's the only thing that matters. I don't care if Patricia thinks that she won. Let her have her twisted version of the events. Let her bask in the attention for now because, well, once the will is read and everything's final, she'll never see us again. She and Ryan belong in the trash can where they've always belonged. And soon that's exactly where we'll have them. Rubbish. What bait number 2? Hello everyone. The last day of Henry's wake is approaching, just 2 days away, and I was fully prepared to distance myself from Patricia and Ryan. I didn't want to be anywhere near them. I didn't want to listen to the whispers, feel the judgmental stares, or give them the satisfaction of seeing me in a vulnerable state. But apparently avoiding the wake entirely was not an option. Not when Patricia has been working overtime to turn the rest of the family against me. For the past few days, Mark and I have been bombarded with messages from relatives demanding that we show up. They framed it as paying our respects, but the undertone is clear. This is about appearances, about damage control. And apparently Patricia has been so gracious about my betrayal that she still encourages everyone to forgive me. Her latest performance is playing the selfless, suffering widow who believes in family above all, despite what I supposedly did. Some relatives have bought into it entirely while others are just trying to keep the peace. Either way, Mark and I have been guilt-tripped nonstop. I wish that I could say I was surprised, but honestly I'm just tired. Tired of the lies, tired of the manipulation, tired of being the villain of the story Patricia created. I've spent so much time angry, so much time dwelling on how unfair all this is, but at this point I just want it to be over. I don't care what they think of me anymore. I don't care if they've convinced themselves that I'm a thief, that I somehow deserve to be shut out of Henry's life in his final days. They've already made up their minds. Fighting back will do nothing. So Mark and I have decided we're going. Not because we care about Patricia or what her flying monkeys think, not because we feel obligated, but because this will be the last time we've ever been in the same room as these people. We're attending only the last day of the wake, one extra day to endure before we're free. I hate the idea of stepping into that room and becoming the main event for Patricia's entertainment. I'll know she'll be watching me like a hawk, thriving off the fact that I was finally pressured into coming. She'll probably greet me with one of her passive-aggressive smiles, that fake concerned voice that she uses when she wants to humiliate someone under the guise of being kind. Oh, and Ryan, he'll probably smirk too, self-absorbed to realize that his mother's game only worked because Henry was too sick to see through them. He'll bask in his little victory, thinking that he and Patricia truly won. Well, you know what? Let them. While Patricia's so focused on controlling the family, and Ryan's busy thinking about his inheritance, Mark and I are making preparations to leave. Not just leave the city, leave the country. For the past few months, we've been making plans to become digital nomads. See, Mark and I both work in fields that allow remote work, and after everything we've been through, we realize that we don't want to stay here anymore. There's nothing left for us in this place. No real family, no real support, just people who are willing to turn on us the moment Patricia spins her next story. We want a fresh start. A life where we aren't constantly looking over our shoulders wondering what new lie Patricia will spread. A life where we don't have to endure family events that feel more like battles than gatherings. So this last day of the wake, it's just a little suffering before freedom. I won't engage with Patricia, I won't play into her games. I'll stand beside Mark, keep my head held high, and get through the day without giving her what she wants. Because after this, we're done. The funeral will come next, followed by the will reading, and after that, Patricia and Ryan can rot in their toxicity while we move on with our lives, far, far away from them. Update number 3. I needed to step away and write this because I'm so angry right now. I knew today would be bad, but I did not expect Patricia to go all out. Mark and I arrived at the wake as planned, and the moment we stepped inside, I knew it was a mistake. Patricia was in her element, moving through the room with calculated grace, sobbing just enough to keep up the performance while carefully watching those who were paying attention. Every time somebody approached to offer condolences, she would tilt her head just so, dab in her dry eyes, drawing sympathy like a master manipulator. And then she spotted us. Her reaction was immediate. She made a show of approaching us, moving slowly, her expression one of sorrow and gracious understanding. And when she reached us, she spoke in a trembling voice, making sure those nearby could hear. She told us she had known that we would come because in the end, family always finds its way back to each other in times of losses. I nearly lost it right then and there. The way she spoke, the softness of her tone, made it sound as if we had been the ones who had abandoned her, as if we had been the ones refusing to help, as if she was the bigger person for forgiving us despite everything. She said it all so sweetly, so generously, while knowing exactly what she was doing. Of course, there were family members watching, their expressions unreadable, waiting to see how we would respond. And that's when I realized this was all for them. For the audience Patricia had carefully gathered. She wanted everyone to see her as the patient widow, the mother who had been so wronged, but still had the strength to welcome us back into the fold. It took everything in me not to react. I wanted to snap, to tell her to stop pretending, to remind her that she had been the one keeping us away from all this, that she was the reason we weren't included in the funeral planning. I wanted to demand she drops the act and admit that she had orchestrated everything, and just admit that she had destroyed my relationship with Henry before he died. But I knew that if I gave her even the smallest reaction, she would spin it into something else. She would turn it into another chapter of her sob story, another piece of evidence that I was cold and ungrateful. So I nodded, uttered something polite, and moved away before I did something I would regret. But Patricia was not done. Throughout the time we were there, she found ways to dig at us. Small, subtle jabs that only Mark and I would catch, but others would see it as an innocent thing, she says. She spoke about how unfortunate it was that Henry had been so troubled in his final days, pausing just enough to let the implications settle before adding that at least he's at peace now. She reached for Mark's hand at one point, squeezing it gently while murmuring that she knew that this had been hard on him, that no one should have to carry such a burden. The worst was when she turned to a guest and spoke about Henry's generosity, emphasizing how much that he had given even when it wasn't deserved. And I felt suffocated. I wanted to scream, to call her out, to make her drop the act in front of everyone. But I knew that she was waiting for it. She was waiting for me to crack, to give her exactly what she needed to cement her story. Mark saw it too. I could feel the tension inside him, the way his body tensed every time Patricia spoke, the way his jaw clenched as he forced himself to stay quiet. He knew exactly what she was doing, and when we finally got a moment away from the crowd, he asked if I wanted to leave, and I did not hesitate. We made our exit as soon as we could without drawing too much attention. We left earlier than planned because I just couldn't stand it. Being in that room surrounded by Patricia's lies, Ryan's smugness, and all the people who had already made up their minds about me, it's too much. And now here I am at home trying to calm down but failing miserably because tomorrow's the reading of the will, and I don't know if I'm ready for it. I know it's going to hurt, seeing Henry's final decision, hearing what he truly left behind, having it made official that he believed Patricia's lies. I don't know how I'm going to handle it. This will make everything final. There won't be any more what-ifs or second chances, just the cold, hard truth of how he chose to leave things. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared, but the one thing keeping me sane is Mark. He's with me in this. He saw what happened today, he knows what kind of person his mother is, and he isn't wavering. If nothing else, at least I know we're facing this together. We've been reading through all the comments, and I just wanted to say thank you, seriously. It's been hard feeling like the villain in my life, like I'm being painted as the ungrateful outsider when all I ever did was love Henry and take care of him. But reading all your words has reminded me that I'm not crazy. Patricia's a manipulator, a two-faced monster, and this is not my fault. Tomorrow I'll face the will reading. It'll hurt, it'll cement everything, and I hope I don't cry at all in front of those two. Oh, I really hope. Final update, it's been 2 months. This is update 4 after the will reading. Mark and I are free. We've been so busy settling into our new lives abroad that I just completely lost track of time. Haven't updated, sorry. Between adjusting to a new country, handling all the logistics of moving, and just trying to breathe after everything, we barely had time to process everything that happened. But now that things have finally settled, I figured it was time to give one last update, especially since we've been keeping something huge to ourselves. We're expecting a baby. It was a complete shock. With everything that happened, pregnancy was the last thing on our minds, but life had other plans. When we saw the positive test, everything changed. Suddenly, our focus wasn't just on escaping our toxic past, but on building something beautiful for the future. Mark is over the moon. He's already talking about all the things he wants to do as a father, about how we're going to raise our child in a home full of love, not manipulation. We're setting up our new home and it's in our house, preparing everything for the baby and just moving forward. But before all this, before we even got the chance to breathe, we had to endure one last battle, the reading of the will. That day, Patricia and Ryan walked into the lawyer's office with a smug look on their faces. I call it confident, fully expecting to be handed everything on a silver platter that Henry left behind. Patricia, she was in her element, greeting everyone with fake humility, playing the gracious widow, while Ryan barely even tried to hide his excitement. He'd been telling people for weeks that he was to receive, quote, life-changing money, and had already started making grand plans for his new life of luxury. Wow. Meanwhile, Mark and I sat quietly prepared for whatever final blow was coming our way. We'd already accepted that Henry had changed the will under Patricia's influence. We'd already come to terms with the fact that this was just one last insult to endure before we were done with them forever. But then the lawyer starts reading Henry's final decision. It was not what Patricia and Ryan had expected. Oh, Ryan, the golden boy, that golden child he is, was barely in the will. Henry had left him a fraction of what he was expecting. So little compared to what he had banked on. And I could see the panic set in as the lawyer continued. But that wasn't even the biggest blow. Henry had placed strict conditions on what Ryan could even access. See, his inheritance was completely locked unless he became financially independent, meaning full-time employment, stable income, and proof that he could sustain himself without Patricia holding his little hands. I've never in my life seen someone go from arrogant to horrified so fast. Ryan sat there frozen, his mouth half open, staring at the lawyer like he had misheard something. Patricia, usually the picture of poise, lost all of her composure, and I could see her breathing heavily, her carefully constructed mask slipping as she struggled to process what's going on. But then the final blow came, the crushing blow. Henry had left behind legal evidence, providing evidence of Patricia's accusations against me being false. Apparently, he had not really been as convinced by her lies as she thought. He had investigated on his own, and before he passed, made sure there was evidence clearing my name. The lawyer handed over documentation that completely destroyed Patricia's so-called evidence. And despite all of Patricia's efforts to erase me from Henry's life, he had still left me a significant portion of the inheritance. Patricia and Ryan lost it. See, Patricia demanded to see the paperwork, insisting there had to be a mistake. Ryan, unable to process what had just occurred, started yelling that this wasn't fair, that Henry had promised him more, that he had been tricked. It was pure chaos. Mark and I, however, just sat there and watched all this unravel. It was glorious. Yes, I wasn't expecting this. I had already made peace with the idea that Henry had been manipulated until the very end, but in the end he saw right through them. Maybe not fast enough to stop Patricia from poisoning his final months, but enough to make sure she and Ryan did not get everything they wanted. As we walked out of the lawyer's office, I felt lighter. Lighter than I've felt in months. Not just because I'd been cleared, but because this was over. Patricia and Ryan were left scrambling, humiliated in front of the very people that they had hoped to impress. And me? I got justice. And now Mark and I are moving forward, not just emotionally but literally. We're finally settled into our new home abroad. We made the leap, left the toxicity behind, choosing a new life with a fresh start and a future where Patricia and Ryan do not even exist. Sometimes I still think about Henry, for all his flaws, for the mistakes that he made at the end. And I knew that he would have loved this baby. It breaks my heart that he'll never get to meet his grandchild, and he'll never know the life Mark and I are building together. But I also know this: Patricia will never ever meet this baby. Ryan will never meet our child. They don't get to be a part of this. Patricia stole so much from us: time, peace, and the relationship we could have had with Henry in his final days. But she doesn't get to have a second chance through my child. We're done.